Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about why I don't think I have an art style and I don't think I ever will. So before I start the video, I'm just gonna tell you guys really quick what I'm doing here. This is Killua. I'm drawing Killua I did this when it was his birthday. It was like a few weeks ago. So yeah, this is my speed paint to him while I talk about this topic. First off, I just want to mention that everyone has somewhat of an art style. Everyone has tried to make an art style their bitch, but most of us just can't see our good art style because we tend to compare ourselves to gods. But what's gonna be different about my video is that I'm going to show you why some art styles are better suited for specific projects. And instead of having one art style, I believe it is better to have a more versatile art style instead. Now, before I talk about how it is you can have a more versatile art style or how to actually find your art style, I'm going to talk about my evolution of my art style first. So here are some examples of my old art compared to my new art recently, and I would like to start by comparing them in phases. So my first real phase of attempting to make a real art style was in art school. Back then, I really wanted to be realism or semi-realism. We had assignments specifically to make portraits of people, and yeah, it was a lot of constant exercises to find out the anatomies and facial structure and whatnot. And I really liked these assignments because my goal was to be able to do realistic art styles. However, there was a semester where we had to do an assignment specifically about art styles, and our lecturers would make us look for other people's art styles, other professional artists' art styles that we would like to incorporate and try to follow. But the one I chose was somewhat realistic, had their own vision and their own art style. Back then, I was really happy because I did that semi-realistic art style. Looking back now, actually, that art, I was actually still very anime inspired. I used to draw because of anime when I was a kid and whatnot. And this anime art style or whatever has always stuck through me throughout my high school, art school, and even now, I would say. After a few semesters, I had digital art studies, and basically we were all just looking for references of other professional artists' work or just celebrity portraits that we can draw on. And it was actually my first real training on digital art. The rest before this, we used pencils and traditional art. But during my final year, I was depressed because I was going through things, and I hated doing realism. I hated it because it took a lot of time, and finishing one art piece would take 3 days or a week, and I wasn't the kind of person to stuck through art for more than 3 days. I was the kind of person who liked to get things done quick, hence sometimes why my art looks really rushed and whatnot. But it was my mentality back then, even now, that I want to do things quicker and not hover over an art for a really long time. And that's why I created Roommates, my first comic. I actually had tried to create another comic before Roommates. It was more anime-ish style. It's very cringy. We don't talk about it. So this Roommates is my first comic, and it basically came out from my depression and stress from college and just life in general, and I wanted to avoid realism possible. So I made my own style. It was like a sketchy, more anime style. It was fast and whatnot, but eventually the style had to change throughout the years because of the coloring process. You know, doing a sketchy style like this, it's very hard for me to magic wand color my comic, and I used to have to pen tool and color like with the circle brush manually, and it would take a lot of time. I wouldn't be able to put out the comic in 2 weeks had I stuck to that style. So I got Clip Studio Paint, which is very good. I recommend you all getting it. You know, I would magic wand. Their magic wand is very nice. It's better compared to Photoshop, and it helped me to color my comics better. But for me to be able to do that, I needed to change the style. I used heavier brushes compared to the sketchy style. Heavier brushes means I can cover more gaps. And the big thing about painting with magic wand is that you want to color the gaps. You want to cover the gaps because, you know, it'll be easier for them to recognize that this is a whole section. I would say that because I am making this current style right now, my personal art, you know, I always try to avoid doing something similar to this. Furthermore, I graduated later on, and then Roommates was the most consistent art project I ever did. I stuck through the style religiously. I tried really hard to stuck through it. But during my off days or off times, I would draw for myself, and I would just draw. I would go back to drawing like anime-ish kind of style. It was very recently that I decided I wanted to be more minimalistic and sketchy, but it was like minimalistic, more sketchy, but that I was able to color it quicker as well. Basically using brushes that can cover gaps and whatnot, because some brushes Photoshop can recognize that this is a whole section. So I managed to stuck to one brush since I graduated college, and this brush has served me well in every drawings that I have made. I am still doing different types of style. For example, these ones. These are more like lineless, more pen tool styles. It's just experimenting out there, and I actually really like this piece just because of how stylized it is. It's the most stylized thing I've done. But I think people like my Studio Ghibli style the most. Hence, it also got me a lot of commissions and whatnot, to be drawn in that kind of Studio Ghibli style environment and whatnot. And yeah, it really depends. I personally, I prefer just using minimal lines for my personal art and whatnot. Of course, this is and eventually I also made a comic called Dear Alice. Knowing how much I hated the coloring process, I decided to make Dear Alice black and white and with the most sketchy and minimal lines art style ever, just because it's a more light-hearted comic. It's a once a week comic, so I wanted to be able to finish this every week with no problems and whatnot, compared to Roommates, which needed like 2 weeks. It definitely takes more time to finish Roommates because of the lines and the colorings and whatnot. So yeah, this is basically the evolution and journey of my art style. As you can see, I've changed a lot. I realized that I've still kept the anime aspect of it, but lately, of course, I've been trying to get into the more animation kind of style, something like Ethan Becker, I guess. So now that you know how my evolution started, I'm gonna give you guys a few pointers on how to find an art style for you. The first I would like to say is storyline is very important. Now, I know that not all of you are creating comics, but I think that even if you're just doing like personal arts, you can always try to put a story in your art. if you have a story in an illustration piece, I think that can be very helpful as well. If you are creating webcomics or long comics, of course you will need to have an art style. This is very important, and it also is determined by what kind of story you're presenting. Now, the next thing I recommend is, references. Everyone recommends references, so don't skip this part if everyone is recommending it. Now, references can be like, Pinterest, culture, artists, and films. You have to really dissect what people are drawing. I think usually like doing paint overs of like films and whatnot, they can be very helpful, because if you're going off on like a blank photograph or of something realistic, you can kind of see your art style coming out, because you cannot follow other people's art style. You're literally drawing from what you're seeing, and your art style is going to eventually come out of it. It's basically like a study, any kind of study from like cultures or films and whatnot. And yeah, which brings me to my next suggestion, is to learn realism and draw fan arts. I mean, if you think about it, realistic portraits and realism in general is fan art of this particular person you're drawing. So yeah, learn their anatomies, don't skip the fundamental studies. I believe you need to have fundamental studies before finding an art style. Of course, I know that some people can skip this step very easily, but if you're struggling, just learn the fundamentals. It will help you a lot. Knowing what the fundamental structure of a person looks like, how the person moves, is going to help you decipher and minimalize that person and eventually come up with your own art style. I also recommend drawing fan arts, because when you look at the characters professional artists have created, learn what makes them special. Why do you love this character? I know some people draw for their stories and whatnot, but I also know a lot of people are going to be, but like, story is one thing, character design is another. So learn their designs of the character and why they're special, basically. And lastly, just fail. Make mistakes. I had to constantly make a lot of mistakes in my art and fail in a lot of art pieces that I have hidden from Instagram because they're too cringy to look at. But it is because of these kind of arts that have not satisfied my drawing need, my art style needs, that I have become who I am today, where I am able to somewhat develop an art style. So just keep making, and like, don't stop just because you had one bad art. Take a break, come back in a few days, and continue making something that hopefully one day you can be proud of. My life goal always is to just have that one piece of art that I can be proud of for a very long time. And in conclusion, I would say, I think it's a luxury to not have a consistent art style, because think about it, if you have a consistent art style, you are going to be drawing the same thing over and over again until God knows when you die or something. And you might not have the luxury to stop, because it could be your only source of income. People are following you for your specific art style. And if you start to deter away from that art style, people are gonna be like, what's up, That's why in the beginning years where you have time and money to explore art styles, do that. Only stop doing that when you are trying to like make money and whatnot, and you're trying to really build a name for yourself. For me, I'm still at that phase where I'm exploring, I still make projects, but I have projects that have a consistent art style. But like, when I'm done with this project, you know, I'm gonna be like, bitch, bye, I'm moving on, and I'm gonna keep making different art styles for different stories. So yeah, I guess you can say, to me, stories, the storyline of the art styles is the most important to me for creating an art style. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments on what other videos I should make. And till then, I shall see you in the next video.